parts of my story will be similar to some of yours. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 41 years ago in what some of you might call the dark ages. I was 12 years old and living in Ireland. And to tell you the truth, I think the hardest part about my diagnosis back then for me was having to give up competition gymnastics. But I have to tell you that that would not be the case today. We have so much more available to us today. But back then, we didn't have the tools. We had one type of insulin. And worst of all, we didn't have glucose meters. When I was 15 and a half, we emigrated to America. I'm the oldest of 6. And still though, it took me a while to get a glucose meter. I was on Medi-Cal, and back then Medi-Cal didn't cover glucose meters. Rather like Medicare and CGMs today. I have my CGM, but we must continue to advocate for what we should be entitled to have to manage our disease. Then I moved to Santa Barbara to go to UCSB when I was 18. And that was a really good time in my life. My diabetes management began to change. I got a really good healthcare team, and I got a glucose meter, which encouraged me to join the UCSB gymnastics team. So it was a great time in my life. I also met my lovely husband, Hervé, my wonderful, wonderful husband. We have 2 children, 27 and 23. So Santa Barbara was really a great move for me. And then during my first pregnancy, I was fortunate enough to work for the American Diabetes Association, which was housed in the William Sanson Center. So how fortunate was I to be able to confer with one of the most renowned scientists in the world, Lois Jovanovic. She was such a great mentor for me. She really helped me to understand how important it was to have excellent blood glucose control. And so, since we didn't have constant glucose meters back then, I tested all the time. And I was lucky to be at the William Sanson Center, so I was able to do my own A1C tests, which she really taught me the importance of good A1Cs, good blood sugar control, and my outcomes for my pregnancies were good. About 7 years ago, my youngest sister Julie phoned me. She was 35, and she said, "Gina, I've been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes." And it was hard for her. So you can imagine, she's not next door. She works for the VA as an RN in Palo Alto. So we spent lots of time on the phone during her early days of her diagnosis. One day she phoned, she said, "My blood sugar is 45. And I said, "Well, did you follow the rule of 15? You know, the rule of 15 is we ingest 15 grams of simple carbohydrates, and then we stayed on the phone, and she waited 15 minutes, she tested again, her blood sugar was at the normal level. She phoned me about 2 hours later to say, "What'll I do? My blood sugar's at 300. And I said, "Well, what did you do between the time you got it back to the normal rate?" She said, "Well, I went to McDonald's for a Big Mac and a fries." And you know, we have to have a sense of humor. So we just burst out laughing. And so welcome to the world of diabetes. But you have to have a positive attitude as well. And so a positive thing that came out of both of us having diabetes was we are part of a peer-to-peer program which is sponsored by Sanofi Pharmaceuticals. So we travel all over the country to encourage people living with type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, to make positive changes, to make positive choices so that they can better manage their diabetes. So that's positive. Sometimes we travel together, so it's fun. Now, I know how it feels, my husband and I know how it feels to have a child diagnosed with diabetes. How many of you out there have had that experience? Well, I know how it feels. Our son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was 17. He's 23 now. Actually, he diagnosed himself. I was on a trip for my diabetes peer program. I was in Coeur d'Alene, and I got the phone call, and I felt so far away. But immediately, you know, Lois Jovanovic, I was in a hotel room. She was on the phone with me, encouraging me, giving me support. And Sean, our sister, the wonderful team at William Sansum Diabetes Centre. So we will always remain very grateful to them. And he has a wonderful endocrinologist. I have to acknowledge Dr. Mark Wilson, who has continued to encourage Sean Michael to have good management of his diabetes. And he has his motivation. He continues to be passionate about his tennis and his beautiful girlfriend Claire. So he has good motivation to manage his diabetes. And like many of you, I am very hopeful for a cure. So that's why I think it's very important for us to continue to participate in clinical trials. Sean Michael, my son, participates at the William Sansum Centre, and my sister Julie, even though she's in Palo Alto, is also one of the team. She has come and participated in clinical trials at the William Sansum Centre. And I would like to thank the William Sansum Diabetes Centre for all that they do for those of us and our families living with type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes. Thank you